Join me as I dig deep into some of the most mind-blowing messages believed to come from God and see if they really can change the way we see the world. Have you ever stopped to think about the concept of God's messages and their relevance in today's world? It's a topic that's often overlooked, yet it has the potential to completely shift our perspective on life and the world around us. Many of us have been conditioned to be skeptical of divine communication. We've been taught to rely on science and reason, and the idea of God sending us messages can seem, to some, like a relic of the past. But what if I told you that God's messages are still being received today, and they're changing lives in profound ways? Some people might dismiss these messages as mere coincidence or superstition, but for those who have experienced them, they are very real. Others might argue that even if God's messages are real, they're often open to interpretation, and it's up to each individual to decide what they mean. But what if I told you that there are countless stories of people receiving messages that are so specific, so detailed, and so impossible to explain, that they defy rational explanation? These messages are not just vague feelings or intuitions, they're concrete, often life-changing events that can have a profound impact on those who receive them. Take, for example, the story of a person who received a message to change their flight plans at the last minute, only to find out later that the original flight they were booked on crashed. Or the person who received a message to forgive someone they had been harboring resentment towards, only to find out that the person was about to pass away. These are not just coincidences, they are real events that demonstrate the power of God's messages. In the next section, I'll be sharing more examples of God's messages and how they've changed lives. But for now, let's take a moment to acknowledge the skepticism that often surrounds this topic. It's natural to have questions and doubts, but as we explore this topic further, I want to challenge you to keep an open mind and heart. There are countless stories of people receiving God's messages that have led to major events and outcomes. From prophets to ordinary people, God's messages have been reported throughout history, and they continue to this day. One famous example is the story of a prophet who received a message to warn people of an impending disaster, and thousands of lives were saved as a result. Another example is the story of a person who received a message to start a charity, and through that charity, thousands of people were helped and lives were changed. These messages are not just vague feelings or intuitions, they're concrete, often life-changing events that can have a profound impact on those who receive them and on the world around us. From miraculous healings to divine warnings, God's messages are often reported in the most unlikely of places. They can come in the form of visions, dreams, or even just a strong sense of knowing. Whatever the form, these messages have the power to transform lives and change the course of history. One of the most powerful examples of God's messages is the story of a person who received a message to forgive their greatest enemy. This person had been holding on to resentment and anger for years, but through this message, they were able to let go and find peace. The ripple effect of this forgiveness was immense, and it went on to change the lives of countless people. This story, and many others like it, demonstrate the power of God's messages to transform lives and bring about healing and redemption. They show us that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope and always a way forward. These messages are not just for the recipient, they have the power to inspire and guide us all. As we reflect on the significance of God's messages, let's remember the potential they have to inspire and guide us. These messages are not just for individuals, they have the power to bring about global change and transformation. Thanks for watching, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on divine messages in the comments below. If you want to explore more on this topic, be sure to check out my other videos on God's messages and their impact on our lives.